So the jumping off point for this first issue really was the Draxorn. We knew that we wanted a dragon on the front cover because it's iconic. You kind of have to go down that route, I think, with a 5th edition of the world's greatest role-playing game. And we wanted to do something a little bit different. Not just a dragon, and so enter the Draxorn. Dragon/Zorn. And it started with this first piece of artwork that I just photobashed together as to what a Draxorn might look like. I can't remember who the original artist was for the base dragon. It was a really nice piece of art until I got my hands on it. And then I chopped up the Zorn picture and put it together. And we liked the concept, but I think we decided that the mouth needed to be a little less vagina-y, perhaps is the word. I think that was the word that we used. And so... But this is where we went. We kind of saw it and thought, this is going to be a cool monster. And so that's where it was. We started at the beginning of September, and then we just jumped straight into it. Now, to be fair, we were making, I think, all bar the Heavenly Horde adventure. I think we were making all the adventures at kind of the same time. I know I was jumping between different maps. We were making all the other content. We were... there was a lot that was going into it in these first few days. But this was where we started. And from there, I just made a mock-up of the map. And it was rough. I use a lot of my own assets when I make my maps. And so I was able to quickly bash this one together and threw it over to TJ, who was obviously doing the writing. TJ is the main writer. And he wrote all the adventures for the launch issue. And so we started then working together, which was a bit of a different way of doing stuff. I've never really had to. When I make the maps for my other Patreon, the Mad Cartographer, we're just making maps. We don't really need to think about the adventure too much. I always try to make maps that a DM can make an encounter around and make an adventure around. But this was completely different. We were working in tandem. So as I was building maps, he was writing adventures, and we would keep coming together. And one of the first things he says was that entire right-hand side just doesn't work. It doesn't lead anywhere. I don't like it. And we need some more rooms in there. And so we did. And there was just a night that we were on Discord together, and I was just like, okay, let's just start from scratch. And this abomination is what was made, and it was just scribbles and drawing over in just kind of rough pen using Clip Studio Paint, and it was a really exciting way to work because you just bounce off each other so much that you're both coming up with ideas for what could happen in a room. Okay, if this room is going to have some lava in there, okay, what creatures are you going to have in? Let's put some salamanders in there. And so we slowly started to build the map up like that. One of the things that is difficult and that we kind of not overlooked, but we're not exactly experts at making magazines. I think what we've got is great, but it's been a lot of trial and error, is composition and orientation. When you make a huge landscape map and that is like crazy wide, if it doesn't fit to certain ratios, then it's just not going to fit on the page properly. And so there's a few of the maps in the launch issue that aren't exactly perfect for the page. They're great for print, they're great for VTT, great for when you use them, but they were problematic for layout. Something we will address for the future. So we started going through it, and we cut some rooms here and there to make the adventure more concise. The layout of the dungeon started to come together pretty well, and the hardest part for me was the final boss room for the Draxorn. So the Draxorn, that sounded a bit posh. For the Draxorn, and we knew that it had to be a big room. It had to be impressive. We knew that we wanted it to be his lair. The whole issue is about lairs, and so it had to be sparkly, it had to be filled with gems, and it went against my style. I draw heavy ink, and it required a lot more Photoshop effects, and kind of like lighting and things like that didn't come easy. So there was a lot of playing around a lot of back and forth. Like normally when I make a map, I just make it and it's down to me. But it had to kind of coincide with what TJ was writing, what encounters he had, the pace of the actual dungeon. But then similarly, he could write a room and the description had so many kind of details in it. I'm like, dude, I've not got the time to draw everything in that room. So it was really kind of like a push and pull and kind of working together to get something that worked for both of us. He decided that he was going to cut 2 of the rooms from the map to make 9 areas in total, because he felt that there was enough interesting things going on that there really wasn't a need for the extra areas. Originally, TJ had this mechanic about taking fire damage and smoke inhalation the closer you got to the lava, but it just ended up being a little bit overly complex. So he kind of simplified it to just straight up damage if you fell, and then the salamanders, they'll specifically try and grapple and try to toss the characters in there. So it is this kind of back and forth going around, and the more you get to bounce it off each other, the better. It ends up, a cooperative, collaborative creation just ends up being so much better. And that's pretty much what this entire issue has been. It's been predominantly 2 people coming together and making something they love and bringing on a bunch of other really cool people that they got to work with. And so this is the full map, and you can download this. We've released them all as 300 PPI for print. We've released them as 140 for playing VTT, and they come in hex and square, gridless and square. I think we did hex as well. So it was round about the 2-week mark that we actually started reaching out to other artists. We knew some of the people that we wanted to bring on board before then. We'd had a discussion, TJ and myself, before, and one of the first people that we approached was Martin Kirby-Jackson, who had done some fantastic work for Mage Hand Press, and we'd seen work that he'd done on Dark Matters and Valda's Spire. And so we reached out to Martin and said, like, hey, we'd love you to do the cover for our launch issue. But yeah, so we approached him about it and said, like, this is what we need. We've got this idea for this dragon that is a Zorn, and we sent him some artwork and some concepts and reference material and stuff like that, and said, this is going to be on the front cover, so we need to have some space for the text. I think he underestimated how much text we were going to have on the front, because obviously we wanted it to be quite high impact and modern looking, and kind of showing what was in the first issue. But it was great, and we kind of just left him to it. He came back to us pretty quickly with these different thumbnails of the different poses of the Draxorn, and we told him that we wanted to have this adventurer on the front. They're going to be on the front of, there's going to be a different red cloak adventurer on the front. The Bloodbound will always be wearing an element of red clothing, and that was it. He said, it's going to be in a cave, some gems, go nuts. And this is what he came back with, and they were great. We're spot for choice, and then was like, okay, let's throw down a rough layout of the text, and it kind of makes the decision for you, really. And some of it's like, okay, this is going to look better with the Draxorn being fully over to the right. It is a page and a half, so it's the front cover, and then it curls around halfway through the back cover as well. And also it was going to be the adventure art for inside the magazine. Originally, inside the magazine, the adventure art was only half a page. It was A5, or half letter, because the magazine is letter size. But that was the first iteration of the demo mag, and when we put it all together, we just weren't happy with it. But I'll touch upon that on a different video. And so when we did the new layout and made it more modern, and the big bold text and the full double page spread, that's what this artwork needed. The art that the people that we've brought on board have done, it needs to be big. It deserves to be big. And so this is it. He worked on it. We didn't need to see any concept sketches. Once we'd seen the composition of the artwork, we left him to it. And here is his process. a little bit of a walkthrough as you can see Martin built up the details and just really brought it to life. It's such a stunning piece that it absolutely earned its place on the front cover. So whilst we were doing the cover arc, we also approached Pavel Kunk from Rodok's Tavern and got him to do some inline. And it was... This one takes more time because it would be... We did it in a bit of a backwards of coming forwards method, to be honest. We kind of went through the adventure and said, like, okay, here are some pieces of artwork that we would like. You know, we wanted a long shot of Mount Temper, and we wanted the minerals that you find in there, the valuable gems. Nanastenite? I don't know. I just make the magazine, I don't read it. And so that's kind of how we approached this one. There was no major unique creatures in there other than the Draxorn, which we had the major art for. And obviously the more artwork you have, the more expensive it becomes. And so we settled early on that we probably want no more than 2 or 3 inline per adventure. But we wanted to make them somewhat useful as well. The thing that we didn't do, which we will do from future issues, is we just kind of chose what artwork we wanted before we laid everything out on the page. And that was a huge mistake from us. And again, it was just a learning curve, really. The process now is that we put all the words on the page, get the rough layout, and then go, okay, where are the big gaps that we need to fill with some artwork? So that's going to be the approach moving forward. Again, it's something we've learned, and it makes things a heck of a lot easier. But again, Pavel did great, and there's a little bit more back and forth with the Nanastenite. He just smashed it out of the park straight away. Came back with it like, yep, that is great. With the long shots of the of Mount Temper, there was a bit of back and forth where he did the rough sketch, and then he kind of came back with a more finished version, but had removed the trees. It was like, well, you know, due to the description that we've got, we need more trees up here and less of a valley, and we need, you know. But he did a great job, and it was great working with people. It's always interesting, people being able to take constructive criticism. You know, when you are hiring people for a job, and you've got an idea in your head what you want it to be, then you've got to be very much on the same page with, you know, this is our product. You know, I appreciate that you want it to look the best for your artwork, but it's still got to match up with what we need it to be. And so far, so good. Everybody we worked with has done a really fantastic job on all this. So the last thing we did was we wanted to get the STLs made. We wanted to get models made. The original thought was that we would be making printed versions for every issue. And then we found out how much it costs to make models, and it's not cheap. So that kind of went straight out the window. If the Kickstarter had gone insane, then it might have been a different matter. But the STLs we knew we wanted. We want to keep doing them for the future issues as well. But we basically went looking on Fiverr, which is really hit and miss. You know, you can find some people on Fiverr and they do a really good job of putting their best work up front, and then you get bidden pretty hard by them, and it just isn't quite what you wanted it to be. And we found a guy called Jamie, and reached out, looked through his profiles, like, okay, looks good, price is good, hey, this is what we want. And we already had all the artwork made for all the other adventures by this point. This was kind of like the last thing we did. So, like, look, we need 4 creatures being made. One of them's a pretty big giant, 2 of them are a bit random, one's a big blobby spider. And, you know, are you interested? And furthermore, if you are interested, are you interested in kind of like sticking around and doing these for future issues? And he was, and it was great. And we sent him the concept art that we'd given to people and the art that had come back to us from our illustrators for the adventure artwork. I was like, this is what we need, and he just went for it. Like, we didn't even see concept stuff coming back from him. He was like, okay, I'm just gonna do these. I was like, okay, cool. And I'll speak about each individual STL in the appropriate adventure. But they were so good. We told him what size we wanted. No, so one of the missteps you'll see is that we told him what size we wanted the base. You know, this is a huge creature for the Draxorn. But he kind of filled the space, but it made the Draxorn so uninspiring when placed against a mini. It looked more like a big dog. I'm like, no. Bigger. You know, that's the size of the disc, but you know, this, we want it kind of coming off it. You know, you see a dragon mini, it isn't this, you know, the size that's contained on a 3x3 inch disc. And so he's like, oh, okay. What about this? And come back like, that is what we're after. And so again, it's just people not being too proud about their creations, that they can't take the tweaks. You know, when you come back to them and say, look, that's great, but it needs to be like this. That was everything. That was the making of the Draxorn Delve. If you have any questions about it, then feel free to ask us in the comments of wherever you have seen this video, and we will do our best to answer them. So this is the first making the magazine. We're going to be doing quite a few of these, touching on the different adventures, the subclasses, making the comic, the process of what went into making the dialogues. There's, you know, and then just a general overview of making the issue itself. So there's quite a lot of stuff to talk about, and hope you find it interesting. Let us know what you thought about the video. Let us know what you think about the adventure. Let us know what you think about the magazine. And if you haven't seen it already, then head over to cruciblemag.com. And if we're still in the Kickstarter, then you can go to the Kickstarter. And if not, then you can download the full launch issue where you can get this adventure for free. Okay, folks, thanks for listening, and we will catch you in the next video. Bye-bye.